Okay, so today we're covering education reform. There's a lot of serious flaws that I've analyzed in our current education system, and I think we're not being as efficient as we actually could be. We're not actually producing the optimal result that we want from the kids either. And honestly, when these kids get out of school, I'm talking like K through 12, I mean, arguably even college, depending on what they go to college for, they have no skill set. So they just spent how many years, how many decades going and how much money and they have no skill set. So, let's now talk about my suggestions on how we reform this process. Now you see the documentation here. Uh, I'm going to read through the document and I'll cover it one point at a time. So let's go ahead and begin. Education reform. The current education system in the United States of America is deeply flawed for several reasons. Number one, it inhibits the speed of progression for students. This is a big deal. Time is everything. Time is everything. Why are we just extending the length of time necessary for school to even finish or to be completed? It just doesn't even seem reasonable. It doesn't seem smart from a tactical perspective either. I mean, come on. Accelerated courses are a thing, and I feel like if you could get all this work done within, I don't know, maybe K through 12, of course. If you could get K through 12 complete by the time you're 14, I think that'd be way better. Because again, time is one of the most valuable assets in existence, period, that each individual will have. You can never get it back. So, could you imagine if you were able to save 4 years of time? 4 years, guys. That's huge. I mean, what can you actually do with that? With an additional 4 years, imagine that 14, you go out into the job market, or you go off to a technical school or whatever. You go to learn your trade. That is acceptable. And now you are several years ahead of the others. If everyone else is still waiting till they're 18 to finish school for K through 12, and you finish by 14 and you're already starting to make just minimum wage and you continue to live with your parents because you're 14, I mean, think about that. You're rent free. You're going to be making tons of money. For that age, I mean, that is nothing but profit overwhelmingly. You will save so much in such a short amount of time. Your kid, by the time he's 18, even with a minimum wage job, should be able to successfully buy a car in cash, own his own car in cash, and depending on just how much you push him to save, I mean, honestly, depending on where you live, you could buy a trailer. I mean, you laugh, but that's an 18-year-old with a trailer, and then when I say trailer, I'm talking like mobile home, so on and so forth. But anyway, you could get a basic mobile home, and you could have your own car for an 18-year-old. That's really good. I mean, people can sit there and make the argument of keeping up with the Joneses, but you got to think about that from a financial perspective. That's huge, man. And all of it is without debt, and he may even have a surplus still. Let's keep going, though. Point two, students are not sufficiently prepared to thrive in the world they are entering upon graduation. Absolutely true. You know, when I finished school, K through 12 specifically, I didn't feel as if I had the necessary skill set to do anything. I didn't even know what path I was going to, correction, I did know what path I was going to be taking, but it was not because of school. It was because of my own endeavors. I went down the military road, and I guess the only class that was of value to me was weight training. I loved it. Loved it. That was my class, and everybody knew it. But anyways, besides that, though, I feel like a lot of this stuff and a lot of the classes and courses that you're taught, they're not really necessary. We need to begin specialization of a trade much sooner than 18 years old. You can't just throw the kids off into the world with no trade once they're 18. No, it's a silly move. Let's keep going. 3. There's also clear evidence that external cultural influences are trying to do away with truth in teaching whenever the truth is contrary to their agenda. Absolutely. Basically meaning the education in the public schools and even a lot of private schools now has been compromised, undeniably so. These individuals have an agenda, and it's not about truth anymore. It's about the agenda. The schools have really been reduced to nothing more than a form of propaganda at this point, and just teaching whatever government wants you to know for the sake of accomplishing, and government, whatever they want you to know for the sake of accomplishing their agenda. And it is a disgusting satanic agenda, with that being said. So if you're not actually learning anything of value, you're stuck there for a prolonged amount of time, and you don't have a skill set by the time you get out, where's the value in this right now? Step 4, or point 4, let's keep going. Rampant sinful behavior is also plaguing the behavior and minds of the student body. Yep, let's call a spade a spade. By the time honestly now, it's elementary school, they're being taught ridiculous and absolutely just sick stuff. I mean, it's just abominable in every way. It's just like, are you actually trying to give porn to an elementary school kid? I mean, what's wrong with you? You're sick, dude. You're absolutely sick. And so you have to really question that as well. Why are you going to let a bunch of sickos hang around your kid? You know, it's not the best move. Not to mention, I mean, that's just elementary school. Even if we get to middle school, high school, you start to see the bad influences really start rubbing off. I mean, it more or less just becomes an opportunity to party. I mean, honestly, let's just call a spade. That's what it is. It's a meat market. It's a meat market. And there's no good thing going on in those schools, no productive thing going on in those schools after a certain point. So let's keep going though. I'm gonna continue reading this document. Don't want you guys to lose any of this. Therefore, it is critical that the body of Christ reforms this educational system. Absolutely. And this goes back to the point that we don't need losers in the church anymore telling us not to get involved in the community. The church absolutely needs to get involved. Paul and the brethren of the past, and not just the Christians as well, the Jews from the past too, who are also followers and had faith in the Lord, they all were engaged in the affairs of community, of their respective communities. So it is nonsense to sit here and say that we shouldn't be involved in the community. In fact, if you're hearing someone say that in your church, I mean, you're either dealing with some coward, a loser, someone who's super naive or deceived, or perhaps you found the wolf in sheep's clothing. You found the infiltrator. Think about it. Let's keep going. The first change that needs to be made is reducing the length of the school years students are required to attend. The current K-12 program requires students to invest 18 years of their life into this process. This is simply far too long and inefficient. That's exactly what I was going over earlier. The information being taught in the schools could be successfully and fully taught to students by the time they are 14 years old or in that general time frame. And don't doubt if it could be done. It's being done in other countries successfully right now. All right, our education system has sunk very low, largely due to laziness, complacency, and just a hedonistic lifestyle, you know, something where people just want to have fun. They just want to enjoy themselves all day, every day. I'm sorry, that's not life. You have to be an adult. You have to learn how to actually be responsible and take care of your obligations. Otherwise, you're going to starve to death. Plain and simple. And that's simply the world we live in. Well, let's keep going. Many students around the globe are already graduating between 12 to 14 years of age. Our students are behind the curve in this way since they're 4 years behind. We got the slow kids. We got the slow kids. No, we don't have the slow kids. We're just not properly structuring the education system, and we're not pushing these kids. The potential of these young people is far greater than I would say most people give them credit, and they could do so much more at a younger age than are you are suspecting. You can't base this on your past experiences and how you did things. You need to understand everyone alive today was born during an era of propaganda. We are not here to simply keep on repeating the cycle. We are here to break the cycle and improve upon the flaws of our predecessors, okay? We're not here to make the same mistakes. We learn from the mistakes of the past, we improve upon them. Let's keep going. We must remember that time is one of the most important commodities each person has. Giving our children as much time to prepare for adulthood is critical to their success. And simply sitting with your face in a book for years while learning no real-world skills is not acceptable. Instead, if a child graduates at 14, then they could immediately jump into the workforce shortly after. And this is the point I was making earlier. Could you imagine finishing all the work super fast, 4 years faster than everyone else, and now you're already starting to make money? I want you to really think about that. If your kid, even making minimum wage full time, because they can work full time at 14, full time, minimum wage in every state, that's ballpark $25,000 a year. So if they're making $25,000 a year, they don't have to pay rent or anything like that because they're still living with the parents. Guys, that's $100,000. They're going to be doing better than most adults would be doing in this country. That is how powerful this is. And they would have it in cash because they don't have to pay the debts or anything along those lines either. They have no debts at this age. I cannot stress it enough. This is so valuable for them to be able to jump and get a head start on their life sooner rather than later. Let's keep going. If a child begins working full time and makes even minimum wage, then they would make roughly a minimum wage of $25,000 a year. Beginning to work at this age is also beneficial to introducing the teens to the professional world and thus learn professional skills for the job market. Considering the teens would still live with their parents, then he or she would not have to pay rent or mortgage either, so they would be able to quickly save up an impressive nest egg. By the time the child is 18, he could have a nest egg of roughly $50,000 to $80,000 and a fully paid off vehicle simply from having a minimum wage job. This is a much better financial and professional position for these new adults to begin their lives. That's what I said. Let's keep going. And they don't have to just immediately jump right into the workforce. They could also use this for additional education. Then this would be a way for them to earn that money that they want for further education with minimal stress at that. Because now their minimum wage job would easily be able to cover the expenses they need for tuition, whether it's at a technical school or a trade school of some sort or college, university, whatever. They would have a sizable lump sum in order to cover those costs. Let's keep going. That nest egg could also be used to pay for college if that was the desired path of the young adult. Although I strongly caution against pursuing the college path unless it is absolutely necessary to the career field of the young adult. Y'all, not everyone needs to go to college. I'm just going to say it. Everyone does need a trade. Every man needs a trade at least. I don't think women have to have a trade. Honestly, because the Bible teaches women should be a homemaker. But I mean, things happen. God forbid, man dies or something, and you got to work. I get that. So, sure, I understand why you might say that a woman needs a trade as well. But Nonetheless, everyone needs a trade, but you don't necessarily need to go to college in order to acquire that trade. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. I mean, there's certifications and things like that. Certifications, some of them are only like $1,000. That's one paycheck. That's one paycheck. Even off of minimum wage from this 14-year-old. Let's keep going. Tuition is very expensive, and wasting a nest egg of that size on college is not always the right call. Going to college and incurring tens of thousands of dollars in debt to simply party, find yourself, or find a spouse is a terrible idea as well. One of the stupidest things you can do, honestly. Yeah, I mean, people are way too silly, and they're too big of hippies and things like that. People are struggling today because they have embraced this philosophy of, you got to go find yourself. I don't need to find myself. I need to make sure I got food on the table. Forget finding yourself. There's many ways you can find yourself. Your job is not how you find yourself. The job is just a means to an end. You are so much more than your job. When you go to pursue additional education, you're there to learn a trade. Your trade should not encompass the entirety of your life. Come on, man. And how many people go to college? And I've seen so many women do this, especially going to college, racking up tens of thousands of dollars of debt, getting a useless degree, and you know what? They're just looking for a man. Why? There's cheaper ways to find a quality man. Good grief. It's just not worth it. And now you've got all this debt and tens of thousands of dollars of debt. Do you understand that student loan debt is suffocating? It is suffocating. It's so overwhelming. You can't get rid of it. All right, not unless you pay it off. And you have to understand what debt truly represents. According to the Bible, debt represents slavery, guys. All right? Debt is slavery. If you're in debt, then the Bible says that the borrower is the slave to the lender. Okay? Why are you going so deeply into debt? The Bible also teaches as well that if you go into debt, you should immediately pay it off so that you're not in that position of slavery. I mean, do you want to be a slave? Do you want to just be overburdened and oppressed your entire, overwhelmed and just depressed and just completely just suffocated by this debt? This is not the way. There's so many other ways to do this. Good grief. And if someone wants to find themselves, go join the Peace Corps or something like that. Go do some missionary work. Go do some stuff that's free. Why pay tens of thousands of dollars to find yourself? I mean, really? Is that the right call? Is that the smartest move to make? Come on, people. There's better ways to do this. Goodness. All right. So going to college and incurring tens of thousands of dollars in debt to simply party, find yourself, or find a spouse is a terrible idea as well. It would be far more beneficial for him to pursue a blue-collar job or the military path instead. Both of these paths will produce a more financially prosperous outcome than the college path, since they do not require the young adults to incur any form of debt, and the adults begin making an income much sooner. Thus, only profit shall be earned. The college-orientated youth cannot catch up to the net worth of the disciplined blue-collar or military path young adults until they are likely age 30 or higher, and they would need to pick one of the top earning degree fields such as STEM majors and law majors. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Do you hear what I'm saying, guys? You rack up so much money going to you rack up so much debt and incur so much debt by going to college and going to these universities. Depending on what you pick as your field, it could literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars. in debt. It doesn't matter if you walk out of there saying, oh, I'm a lawyer or I'm a doctor. Great, you brag all you want. But how many years did that take for you to even begin producing a reasonable income? This guy has been earning, this blue collar minimum wage guy who started working right at 14 has been earning an income without incurring any debt since 14 years old. And don't think he's just going to stay at minimum wage. He has options now because he has no debt and he has a massive nest egg. He can pursue certifications and things like that. And you might laugh, but if he pursues an electrician, the role of electrician or a plumber or something like that, he's going to make even more. He's probably going to work his way up to $50,000 with minimal difficulty, if not further, because those fields can take you much further than just $50,000. And he did that all for just a couple $1,000 or maybe even a couple $100 for the course or certification. And he did it in a short time. If you go down the college path, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially, and it could take, 7 years, 10 years to finish and enter your field? The ROI on that, the return on investment, is small. It doesn't compare. It does not compare to the blue-collar plumber. You might laugh at that plumber all day, but my goodness, when it's time to show the pocketbook or to show that the budget, that guy is going to have more money than you. That blue-collar guy will have more money than you. You get that, right? You don't start making money until much later. And you have debt. So you're automatically starting at a negative net worth. Unless you're like a trust fund baby or something. Or you got a scholarship. Otherwise, but then again, you still have cost of living expenses and so on and so forth. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that you escape from college or the university without debt even then. So just think about this stuff. Is it really worth it every time? If you're not going STEM and you're not going into law or something along those lines, you really need to think about if college is for you. Let's keep going. Getting back on education reform, though, students who graduate at the age of 14 will also be able to avoid the dangerous cultural influences in the schools at the current high school age range. Honestly, you could even argue those dangerous influences begin at middle school, perhaps even elementary school, but it's a very real thing. High school is nothing more than sexually pursuing the opposite sex, drunkenness, and drugs. All of these things destroy your life, plain and simple. How many people, honestly think about it, fall for this trap? How many people are going down this road and just messing up their entire future and creating a lot of unnecessary burdens, and they're becoming jaded and they're adopting bad habits? Their personality is warping in a negative manner after going through high school or college. But let's keep reading. The children are older now and are also more prone to violent tendencies. Doing away with high school protects the students and teachers. It serves no beneficial purpose to the community anymore. It's also recommended that parents place their children in either private or preferably homeschools in order to avoid the insane teachers and propaganda from the current system. The current system's teaching clearly lacks biblical ethics and truth. Many of the teachers have just outright abandoned teaching anything regarding truth or real education. There are teachers currently reading pornographic content to students. This is freaking disgusting. And charges should have been brought down against them immediately. But one step at a time, that two-tiered justice system, that's going bye-bye. That's going bye-bye. And this filth, this whole little satanic agenda, this propaganda they got going on, this is going bye-bye too. One step at a time, though. The teachers are purposefully confusing the students about their genders, too. It is purposefully done. Leaving your children in such a situation is dangerous to their future success, mental stability, and spiritual state. Let me tell you something. Back in the 1800s, 1900s, 1700s, you didn't hear people talking about, oh, the issue of the day is, am I gay? Am I transgender or something like that? You didn't hear that from the kids. That was not the issue of the day. Nobody. Do you know why that's the issue of the day now? Because a bunch of weirdos and a bunch of Satanists are just pushing that. And they're trying to put that thinking in your head. God didn't make you gay. God didn't make you trans. That is nonsense. If you were to look at someone's chromosomes, your chromosomes are either going to be in alignment with the males or in alignment with the females. It's very simple. There's no mixing. There's no in between. You're either or. It's very easy to distinguish between which one you are. It's never been a question. So that's my point. Get your kids away from the propaganda as well. There is no benefit to having them around this. Is it worth it? I mean, you're sitting there saying, oh, you know, maybe my kids won't come out socially competent. Are your kids socially competent if they end up thinking they're gay or they're trannies? Did you actually just score a victory, or did you just screw up your kid's life? You got to think this stuff through. Is it really worth it? Come on, I mean, really think about it. That's a cop-out. It's a cop-out to sit here and say your kids are not going to be socially competent. That's just a rehearsed or just commonly passed around argument that really has no merit. And I don't buy into that. I think it's nonsense. Nonsense. Okay? Honestly, you have to remember as well, the Bible teaches that when you're a Christian, you're going to be different than the world. You're going to be seen as different. You're going to be seen as awkward in the eyes of the world. So naturally, this shouldn't even be a concern if you don't mesh with individuals in the world. It's not about if you mesh with them. All that matters is if you do have the ability to succeed in life. And yes, if you cultivate proper job skills, you have a sense of community, you learn social skills. You learn social skills in many ways, not just going to school. But anyways, if you are, there's many ways to successfully cultivate these skills, and you don't have to do it through an indoctrination camp, which they call the public education system. So just really think about this stuff, guys. Anyways, I hope this was valuable to you. Really think about it as well. Time is everything. Your kids will be able to fly through school. They'll be in a far better state financially, far better than you, the average viewer collectively is probably even right now. And they would be able to pull that off by the time they're 18, probably by the time they're 16. And that might shock you. That might really shock you, but it's that easy. It is that easy. Because I know for sure, I think it was within the first 2 years of within the first year of having a stable income, I surpassed, by leagues, I surpassed the statistics, and I surpassed the average Amley's financial state. It's easy, guys. You just have to avoid the pitfalls, the traps of the enemy, avoid the propaganda, stay out of trouble, and stop making stupid decisions that'll destroy your life. You can't be out there sleeping around with all these chicks and things like that, because guess what? It costs money. It costs money. It costs money. It costs time. It costs energy. And it costs oh my goodness, the emotional energy as well that you're investing into all these different women. I mean, it's not worth it. Don't do that, man. Focus. Wait. Get your ducks in a row first. Then make your move from a position of strength and from a better bartering position, if you will, because you're going to have more capital in the romantic marketplace, if you will. So think about that. All right? Food for thought. I hope it was valuable for everybody. But that's really all I have to say. Thanks for listening today. God bless you all. Oh, and if you didn't see the disclaimer at the beginning, let me go ahead and remind everyone, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal advisor. I'm not a professional advisor or coach of any sort. I'm just a guy on here talking about and expressing my own personal opinions. My opinion should not be taken as any form of advice or aid in any capacity. If you do so, you are wrong, and that's on you. Anyways, God bless you all. Use your head, use wisdom. Don't just go along with the herd. Be smarter than the herd. For that modern reformer, out.